In this episode, we are going to be reviewing A Child is Waiting from 1963. This was directed by John Cassavetes. It was written by Abby Mann, and it starred Burt Lancaster, Judy Garland, Gena Rowlands, and Stephen Hill. Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast where we explore storytelling on film, as well as interviews with industry professionals who work in film, television, and theater. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It is absolutely free to do so. My review today on A Child is Waiting was actually a live review that I did earlier last year with Rukiah Richards, who runs a fantastic John Cassavetes Instagram page with some rare photos that are very, very hard to find. We did a double bill review on A Child is Waiting and Too Late Blues, which are two of the films that John Cassavetes directed under the studio system, which are very different than his independent films. And so I took the A Child is Waiting part of the live review out, and I have put stills from the film over the various scenes and performances and moments that we're talking about to give you, the viewer, more of a visual look and feel for what it is that we are discussing. So stick around. So that leads me to the next one. A child is waiting. Do you know much about the problems with this one, Rukiah, that John had?
Yeah, I think that there were two. I mean, if I was to say two words wrong with the film, it would be Judy Garland. I mean, I absolutely love her as
Yeah,
what she's done. I mean, I absolutely love her. I kind of grew up watching her films, and she wanted to obviously be in a role that was very serious, to be taken as a serious
yeah,
actress, and I mean, to appear with Burt Lancaster. And I think that there were, again, so many creative differences between Stanley Kramer and John Cassavetes. And I think that just simply because it would have been something very close to John Cassavetes, it was children, he wanted it to be very much their dialogue. And it
yeah,
wasn't, it was dialogue of Judy Garland and Burt Lancaster. And I think he also wanted it to be a lot about the parents and how they're dealing
right.
with this. It's been completely new, a completely new film. People hadn't seen before, a topic that people hadn't seen on the screen before, definitely not at that time. So yeah, I know that there were a lot of creative differences, but a lot of them would be between John Cassavetes wanting to be about the children, about the struggles that they're going through, and very much maybe individual children as well. But obviously, it has to again be glamorized. It has to be something that's going to make money, and it has to be something that has a lot of screen time for the big build stars.
Yeah, very, very well said. I mean, the problems John had here were much more than with Two Late Blues. And again, for anyone who may or may not have read Ray Carney's Cassavetes on Cassavetes, he talks about this in the same chapter as Two Late Blues. But just to sum it up for the audience, John, yeah, he was under contract at Paramount to be a director for another film they were going to do after Two Late Blues, and it was taking too long. There were some problems to get that film started, so he was able to get lent out to work for United Artists because he had become very friendly with Burt Lancaster, who was supposed to do this other film with John, and then he wanted John to do A Child Is Waiting, and Stanley Kramer liked Cassavetes as well, so and he was busy doing It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. And he really needed someone to take the responsibilities of that over. And yeah, there was a lot of problems. Just John and Judy Garland did not get along at all. There were massive arguments to the point where the crew had to separate them, which put Burt Lancaster in the middle of things, and he had to. He sided with Judy Garland, and then there was tension and so on and so forth. But the main dilemma was in once they edited the film was that John felt that the film should be saying that uh, these children can live in the world, they can have their own lives, and that we, the humans, are the dopes. We're the ones looking at them just because they have a mental disability as being, strange or odd or all sorts of terrible things. And that's not true. It's just what we're, they are their own people. They're great people. They have a lot of abilities. So John wanted to say that, and he felt Kramer wanted to say no. They belong in institutions. They don't belong out in the world, and they should just be coddled, which is sympathized with, just like Judy Garland's character is doing with all those children. So I'm not so sure if that what John says didn't come through. I think came through, about maybe not 100%, but I think that message was there, that they could have their own lives. I mean, what did you think? Did you think that came through at all, Rukaya?
I absolutely think it came through, because I
Yeah,
think with a lot of John Cassavetes films, he himself knows the potential, because he knows what he's intending to the film. We don't get to see that side, yet we do see the message that he portrays. Obviously, all he's seeing is the fact that it could have been so much better, but we don't see what he actually originally had planned, and
right.
what he cut. And he actually told Abby Mann, who's the screenwriter for this film, and he said that uh, he cut the film himself, and he said he's edited it, and he goes, he wants him to see his version, which Abby Mann said he never saw. But obviously John seeing that version, which we both know would have been amazing, because it would have been
Yeah,
his edited version, and then to have this version, he's obviously disregarded it. And obviously
right.
I think that it's really sad, because I think that to see a film that would have been edited, it would have come through the message so much more. But because we're just seeing this version, the message still comes through, absolutely. And I think it definitely comes through with the children being able to live in society and
Yeah,
be able to continue with their lives. Because I mean, I think Burt Lancaster says it in the film as well, that what is normal? It's our interpretation of,
yes,
what normal is. And
yeah,
I think it's actually quite interesting, actually, because the children in the institute are not all of the same. They don't all have the same disability, or they're not all, they're completely differently abled.
yeah,
You've got children in there, you can see that they're on the autism spectrum. You've got some children there that have Down syndrome, a lot of different children, and they wouldn't all be in an institution together. And to put them all in an institution together is just so sort of crude, to sort of say that you're all in
mm,
one section. That's really awful. That's sort of not even allowing them to be individuals almost. um so yeah, I think the message definitely comes through. I definitely see that. But I think that it's wonderful in the sense that I really love the way Burt Lancaster plays it. So he plays it so sort of compassionate and
yeah.
exasperated. And I think that script that John Cassavetes wrote, he definitely did that justice, I think.
Yeah, I agree. There is that scene that, which is also in Ray Carney's book, where, right before he shows Julie Garland's that other floor of people with different mental health issues who were purely coddled or purely
Yeah.
given compassion to, and were not shown any other alternative, and how, they as a result, couldn't function. He, right before, he wanted Lancaster to get really mad at her, and to tear her apart, because she was still at that point where she's crying because she couldn't take what she was seeing. And And I kind of understand why John said that, because I think would have wanted Lancaster to do that, because it would have been more like, you know what, like enough of this. Like again, it, like you said, Rukaya, it's the perception. Like you're crying because they have these mental illnesses, but you're not seeing that they're humans. Yes, they have challenges we don't have, but they can still have their own lives. And for you to be, crying and sympathizing, and I can't take this, you're robbing them of who they are, making them feel that they're different or strange or odd and stuff like that. And I actually wonder if perhaps that he did really tear into, or if the audience would have felt the message more. I don't know if that did that pop out to you at all.
I think it would have. I think it would have been something very real to a John
Yeah.
Cassavetes script, of someone showing a lot of emotion, not just sort of staying within the boundaries of what they've been told to do. I think it would have been so interesting for him to do that, But I think that again, with the dynamics of this film, I think that with Judy's acting in this film, I just really thought it was really wooden, especially against Burt Lancaster's exasperated version of, his character. I think that with too much emotion and her lack of emotion in the film, it wouldn't sat very well, because you would have had an actor that was being very, very strong and an actress that wasn't being as strong. So it might not have really gelled or worked very well. But I think definitely if he'd done that, the message would have come through very well.
Yeah. I don't, I actually found she was quite emotional, because even in that scene, she was crying, and she has that tenderness about her, and this sympathy and compassion that she was you giving everyone. But you felt that it fell flat.
I did actually, and the only reason I say that is because there's the scene with Gena Rowlands, and it's so amazing because I really remember her in this film, and I think she's in it for all of 15 minutes. She's not in it a lot.
Yeah, small
But in the
part.
scenes, yeah, in the scenes that she is in, which is another tragedy because she's the parent, so it would have been so wonderful to see the
Yeah,
parent with so much more screen time. It would have been, obviously this is another problem that John had. But I think that when I see them in the scene together, where she talks about the fact that she fought the doctors for him, she fought the world for him. When she says that, it's just a
yeah.
lovely line. I think that her acting is so emotional, and against Judy Garland's acting, I think that Judy Garland was emotional, but I just thought it was just slightly wooden. And I just think she
Mm,
got rave reviews for her acting, but I think it was
yeah,
because nobody had ever seen her. The critics had never seen her in a serious role. And so when
true.
they saw her in a serious role, it was amazing to them. It was a non singing role. It was a non-comedy role. It wasn't her on a chat show. She wasn't dancing. She wasn't
Right.
dressed in shiny clothes. So it would have been just something. And she was very popular at the time. She was sort of um, a sweetheart actress. They'd known her since she was a child actress. So I think that because she did a role that was serious, she did get rave reviews. But I think that if it was someone now, just by looking at her acting with Gena Rowlands in that scene, she does come across very, very flat, and she doesn't come across as someone who is talking to a parent who she feels in that moment has left their child behind. I don't think she's.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, she was still treating the parents in the same, because as you know, the whole reason that she brought the parents there was to say, what are you doing? Why aren't you visiting?
Yes.
And yeah, her temperament didn't change at all. Yeah, that's a really good point. I believe that the just I don't know her filmography, Judy Garland, as probably as well as a lot of people do, but I believe, yeah, I think you're right in terms of a leading role. This was her first like really serious part. I mean, Judgment at Nuremberg, she has a very serious part, but
Yeah.
it was one scene that she's in. So yeah, I can see it at the time, just to see her, in this serious part, and she has some really beautiful moments with the children, and even with Lancaster, I felt I can see why that would be enough for the critics to be like, wow. Do you think that, what John was saying, that, well, Kramer cut this to say that these kids belong in institutions? Do you think that that was also something, perhaps maybe with the ending, that also came through?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is one of the main reasons that he had a problem with this film.
Yeah,
He obviously, I kind of feel that the film would have had a lot more scenes with the parents in and with the children. I think there were a lot of scenes, but I think because they were cut, the scene now seems a lot less sympathetic towards that plight. And I also feel that the way that it's been edited, the camera sort of lingers on the children in a very uncomfortable way. And it's
yeah,
almost as if it's giving the audience a chance to see children in these, in with these different abilities. And it's not edited in a way where we kind of feel that they are different, because you said earlier that the audience were saying that they're different. It's okay for them to be different. It's just
exactly. Yeah,
for us to say that there's something wrong with the fact that they're different.
right.
Um, I just feel that it's been cut. Like I say, it's the camera lingers on the children and lingers on their disabilities in a really uncomfortable way. And I think that that definitely would have come across to John Cassavetes, and he wouldn't have been happy with that at all.
Yeah, he was there. There was a something he did in the editing where, because he wanted it to be more sentimental, Stanley Kramer, and so um, he literally, I'm sure you know this, he literally would freeze frame on their face and do something where it would just hold on their face and cut back and forth with the parents looking at them, which creates this like sympathetic look
Yes.
of, oh, these poor kids. So that, yeah, so I can see, so to me it's sort of, maybe Kramer was saying, well, yes, they can live, some of these children can live on their own and have their own lives, but there are others who can't, others who need to be um, in these institutions. So it didn't really have a strong point of view. And I know that John was really behind with the doctor, the Burt Lancaster's point of view. I also found it interesting because early in the film, when you see him being hard, particularly on the little boy Reuben, Gena Rowlands' son,
Yes.
because even I'm experiencing, geez, what's wrong with this guy? He's being a jerk, and they're just saying that his methods are controversial. So it's interesting because I am on kind of Judy Garland's side until later on when he shows that the floor with those other people who unfortunately, because of the way they were treated, were not really capable of having their own lives. Then you go, oh, everything sort of, your sympathy goes towards what Lancaster was saying. And even with the parents, I was really criticizing them. Like, why are you not visiting? And then when you hear Gena Rowlands' story as to why, not that I necessarily agree, it's sort of, it seemed a bit like almost like she couldn't bear to see him that way, so she didn't go. So that, yeah, that didn't quite, again, it's the stigma. So you see the father kind of get, when he's watching him do the play, you see him, maybe he's starting to see that, yeah, I'm looking at this all wrong. But you don't see Gena Rowlands get to that point. So again, I don't know if there was more scenes that they cut, but I don't know if you felt that way. Did you feel that that just really wasn't strong enough?
I do feel it wasn't strong enough, just simply because I mean, it reminds me of the scene with Burt Lancaster's assistant. There's the assistant, and he says, "I do. I have a daughter, and she's 28 years old, and
Yeah,
she has disabilities." But I just think that scenes like that, if they had been introduced and the audience gets to stay with that character for longer and sees their story for longer, you have a lot more understanding for what's going on. So, I mean, John Cassavetes films, because he had so many scenes and because he would have changed and cut, and it would have been a lot longer. But again,
Yeah,
it's a studio and it needs to be cut into a certain frame time, and it needs to
right.
be cut to a certain amount of weeks. And I mean, that does really spoil it, because I mean, we said this with Too Late Blues, we don't understand because certain scenes are cut out, and so you don't sympathize with the characters or where they're coming from. But I really,
Yeah,
really do believe that many of the scenes with the parents would have been cut because they weren't in there enough. You know, I mean, she's in there for 15 minutes, and I would say
yeah.
that she should be one of the main characters of the film.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It was sort of, it was almost as well, which is what John said. It's as if Kramer didn't even know what the movie was about.
Yeah,
And it was just, it. And another thing is, yeah, we have to show more of the stars, and that goes for both films, right? So it becomes more about money
yeah,
and what the audience wants, as opposed to what the story is about.
yes,
Which I'm surprised, because I mean, I really like a lot of Stanley Kramer's films. So why he would go behind John's back and recut his film, him being a director himself, um, is beyond me. But it's a shame. But I mean, it is an enjoyable film, both of them. And there's another really great scene in A Child Is Waiting where the politicians show up. Of course, John Marley, who was in Faces, and I forget the other actor's name, but he was in a number of Cassavetes films. He was also in Raging Bull, Scorsese's film, and of course, know, the typical politicians are only interested in giving the hospital money if some of these kids can go on to work. Otherwise, what's the point? It's only if they can add to the economy. And I love how Lancaster gave them hell to think, well, even if they can't work or do what you want them to do, they deserve to be helped.
ex-
And he really lets that scene play out. I thought that was a real Cassavetes touch. And that last scene too, I love where, I mean, I don't love, I mean, I think Kramer put it there to get his message across, which I don't like. But the when Judy Garland's talking to that boy and telling him to come in and calls him darling, and then he says darling back in a very, and she laughs like, how dare you call me darling? Like I just thought that was the boy must have just done that. It was so perfect.
yes,
And there was no, and it was funny too, right? And it's not that we're, that was another thing with John. He was like, these kids are funny, and you're just making everyone look sad, or oh, these poor kids, they have no lives. And you can, why can't you laugh at things they say? So I'm glad he wasn't able to get rid of everything. um
absolutely.
and that last scene in particular, I think that was such a brilliant moment. And A Child Is Waiting was released on Blu-ray and DVD in 2015, which is very accessible and easy to find. Um, so yeah, so I like I said, these films are not, they're not talked about much. They're easily dismissed because of John's feelings towards them, which I completely understand. And of course, his independent films are far superior. But these I always like them, and I do think that they deserve to be discussed in length, because there's a lot of really good stuff in them. And I've seen them both more than once, and I'll probably watch them again at some point. you know so I think they're really good. So if anyone hasn't seen John Studio films, Too Late Blues and A Child Is Waiting, he also, about half of Husbands is actually a studio film. So is Minnie and Mouskowitz. People, I think those are purely independent. And of course, Gloria was a studio film, and so was Big Trouble, his very last film.
Yes,
So yeah, I wouldn't even mind discussing some of those some other time with you, Rukaya, if you were
definitely.
interested.
Yes, definitely. This film, A Child Is Waiting, it really does remind me of Run Wild, Run Free. I don't know if you've ever seen that film. It's 1969. It's a British film.
No, I
It
haven't.
It has John Mills in it, and Gordon Jackson and Sylvia Sims. And the little boy is played by Mark Lester, and he does seem to be on the autism spectrum. And he's a child that doesn't talk. And it starts off very similar to the way that A Child is Waiting starts, with the
Oh,
parents being very exasperated and thinking that there is something wrong with the child. And Sylvia Sims in this role always reminds me of the way that Gena Rowlands plays the character. She plays it so sort of sympathetically, but so sort of, there's nothing wrong with my child, and I'll
right.
get my child the help that he needs, but I'll fight the world for my child. He's absolutely fine and he's going to be okay. And it's such a beautiful film. I didn't even know about this film until my dad sort of asked my brother and me to watch it, because we're both teachers, so he really wanted us to see this film. And she really, Sylvia Sims in that role, she just plays it so beautifully. And Gordon Jackson, who's the husband, actually, unlike this film, is very unsupportive, and he really does think there's something wrong with his child, and he really does sort of
Oh,
at her and shout at him. And then he meets John Mills, who has a bird, and so he communicates with him through this bird, and they start to have a relationship. And I think that's really sort of wonderful in that sense. But again, I think it shows quite a broad fact that that the autism spectrum is quite a broad
right.
spectrum. And so like in this film, Ruben, he doesn't always necessarily know how to show his emotions, but he does show them when his dad drives away. he
Yeah,
he's Burt Lancaster is holding him. I think that's such an authentic scene.
yeah.
It's so authentic even now that a child would react like that. um and then again, when Gena Rowlands gets into the car, and again he runs after her then as well. And I think
Yeah.
that it's wonderful to see those sort of authentic moments. And I think that definitely John has got that across to us, that is the parts of the film that we do understand, that do definitely show us what he actually intended. It's
Yes.
sad that obviously the rest of the film that he wanted isn't there.
Yeah, very well said. I agree, and those scenes both really choked me up. Are really beautifully acted and authentic, as you say. What was the name of that British film you mentioned? Run. What was?
Run Wild, Run Free. It's from 1969. It's a British film. It's got the actor John Mills in it, and Mark Lester plays the little boy. Mark Lester from
Okay.
Oliver. So it's actually a really, really nice film.
Okay. Great. I'm gonna look that one up for sure. That
Oh,
one sounds really good. Well, Rukaya, thank you so much for joining me today to discuss
thanks
these
for having me.
films. Yeah, you're welcome. I really enjoyed it, and thank you so much, everyone, for your comments. Oh, there's one last question: did the boy who played Ruben do any other movies? I'm not sure. I have to look him up. Do you know Rukaya? Anything about that actor?
I don't actually know about the boy who played Ruben, actually.
Yeah,
Uh,
neither do I. But if
it'd
if a simple IMDb. Sorry.
be nice to research that, actually.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. He was quite good, and as we know, he was an actual actor. All the other children, as I'm sure you know, Rukaya, were all uh, children who actually had mental
Yeah,
health challenges. But yeah, no, he was very, very good. But yeah, if you just do a Google search, you can find out more about him.
yeah,
But yeah, and again, for anyone on Instagram, go over to Rukaya's fantastic Cassavetes Instagram page. It's at John Cassavetes.official. And the link for that is in the description box below. And yeah, one more. Wasn't Billy Mummy one of the kids? That I don't know. I don't even know who Billy Mummy is. Or movie. I'll have to look. You'd have if you go on IMDb, check out the cast list, and it'll tell you everything about that. Well, again, thank you so much, Rukaya. We'll have to just do the other studio films perhaps another time.
absolutely.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and or listening. If you are currently listening to this on the audio version of my YouTube video podcast and you've run out of episodes to listen to, head over to the YouTube channel where every single episode that I have ever recorded can be found.
youtube.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you are interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Patreon is bonus content that I create month in and month out, and it is based on polls that I put out at the beginning of every single month, which as a member, you will have access to vote on. So if you like my work and you're interested in supporting me over on Patreon, head over to the link for full details. You can also leave a donation directly to the YouTube channel by looking right underneath the video. You will see the like, dislike, comment buttons, and beside those buttons, there will be a link that will say thanks. Click the thanks tab, and from there, feel free to leave a donation if you wish. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing to my YouTube video podcasts, which again, it is absolutely free to do so, by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the Movies logo. You will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left. In just a second, just click on that, and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes or when I go live. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.